So yeah, a bit about the context. So I am from Birmingham City University in the UK. It's a very large university, about 30,000 students, lots of international students, but a large proportion of our students are local. They are commuter students based in the vicinity of Birmingham. So we've got 69% from minority ethnic backgrounds. A lot of first generation, over half of our students are first generation in their families to come to university, and 71%, which is actually up on the previous year, of our new intake are commuter students. So they're travelling in from their family homes to our university. So that creates a particular dynamic and to our university experience for our students. So a bit more about the context in terms of key performance indicators. So like any other university, we have certain external indicators by which we're judged, and obviously we have our own internal systems as well. But a key thing in the UK, being a very competitive system in terms of student fees, is a real driver for that, is that we have the league tables, which are published annually, and the biggest of these are the Times and the Guardian, and there's a couple of other ones there, the Complete University Guide, etc. So kind of attributes that have an impact on ranking in these league tables are student satisfaction, and that is measured through the National Student Survey, which is carried out on behalf of the government by the Office for Students, and that is when the students are in their final year. They get asked a series of questions, which are then the numbers are crunched centrally, and then they're shared externally and go into these league tables. And then there's graduate outcomes, which is a survey, again by the Office for Students on behalf of the government, where they ask graduates 15 months after they graduate what they're doing now, and then certain roles are deemed to be successful graduate outcomes and others not. And again, those feed into the league tables. So in terms of my role, it's very much about the student experience, and it's about embedding employability across the curriculum and getting it into the modules. So it's not like, so it's embedded across the curriculum rather than necessarily in standalone courses. And part of my role, again, it's sort of central really, is to find ways to enhance the department's relationships with external organisations, so those industry partners. And another key thing that I measured on, and that the university's measured on, is how many of our students undertake professional placement years. So this is optional for our students on most of our courses, most of our programs. So what you call programs, we refer to as courses, and what you refer to as courses we call modules, but I'll try and stick to the New Zealand nomenclature at the moment. So yes, we try and, where possible, encourage our students to take a year in industry before their final year, because we know how helpful that is in terms of graduate outcomes. So the approach that I've sought to develop over the last, well, so many years is very much a holistic approach. The student experience and employability are just so intrinsically linked. So in terms of the National Student Survey, that's carried out sort of February time of the final year. So at that point, students are looking ahead to graduate outcomes and the kind of careers they're going to be getting. So if they're feeling underconfident, there's every chance that that might be reflected slightly negatively in when they complete the survey. So those two things are just so closely linked. Also, student experiences that are inclusive and transformational. A lot of the initiatives that I've seen developed over the years, you tend to see that the most confident and academically successful students are always the first to jump on every opportunity that comes along, which is obviously fantastic. But if we're going to shift the dial in terms of increasing the number of successful graduate outcomes, we need to focus on those students who are not necessarily stepping forward or seizing those opportunities. And there's all sorts of reasons why that might be the case. And we've done a lot of work over the years to try and identify barriers and support students to make sure that they that every student has the opportunity to have a transformational university experience. I referred to this diagram in my previous slideshows, and I keep coming back to this because this is what really informs my approach. It's this notion of it being an ecosystem whereby industry partners, students, and faculty, academic staff, they work together in this ecosystem that benefits everybody. So it benefits the students, but benefits academics in terms of their professional development, and benefits industry partners in terms of having students, or graduates rather, with the right skills aligned to what their companies need. And if it's done in a dynamic and successful way, it's self-sustaining. But there needs to be very straightforward, very efficient models to support academic staff, to support faculty, to make this happen. And the big part of my presentation today is talking about that, seeing it from an academic staff's point of view, and how we can best support them to be able to build those bridges and build those relationships that really help our students. So again, in my experience, it's absolutely critical that if you are going to support industry engagement and to build employability across the curriculum, it needs to be supported at the very top level in the university. And I'm pleased to say that that is certainly the case at BCU. This is our screen grab here is taken from our 2030 strategy, which was released a few months ago. And you'll see there in the bullet points that it mentions industry excellence and major change in industry and communities through our programs. So the thread of industry engagement runs through everything that we do. This is so important because I've been working in higher education for a long time. I think it's 23 years now. And we've all seen initiatives come and go. And sometimes when faculty have been in the game a while, they might think this is another fad that given time will disappear. But I think industry engagement and getting employability into the curriculum is here to stay. And I think that the sort of government drivers and the way that the industry is changing means that it's not going to go away anytime soon, certainly in our university, which is very much a vocational university. So as I say, support from higher management to change the culture within a university is absolutely critical. But really, in terms of the initiatives that are developed, they need to be developed by the teams on the ground, and they need to be tailored for the particular programs. I think one of the issues around changing the culture around industry engagement, it's slightly different to some of our other priorities. Some of our other priorities are easier to measure. So when we're talking about first-time pass rates on courses or progression rates through programs, we get those figures. We can look at how they've evolved over the last few years. We can project forward, and we can make adjustments and look at the impact of different initiatives. Some of the good work that goes on around industry engagement and the embedding of employability can be more difficult to measure. And that's one of the things I'm going to talk about in the next few slides, is my efforts to do that, to kind of shine more of a light on it and to use that as a driver for change. And another point I'm going to talk about is recognition. So in that final bullet point there, it talks about the university being recognised. I think it's really important that as a university, that students who are thinking about coming to BCU are coming deliberately because they want to come onto programs where industry engagement is threaded throughout, and where it will stand them in a really good chance of getting those jobs that they want. I appreciate it's different at every university. In the UK, there's very different cultures across the different types of university, but the kind of university where I'm based, that is certainly the case. And we need to do more to make that more overt in terms of our marketing, and that employer engagement is at the heart of what we do. So in terms of some strategies, I mentioned about the support of the higher management, but for this to really take a hold, the strategies for the enhancement of graduate employability need to be owned by the collective, and by that I mean at a department level, school level, and most importantly at programme level. And a lot of the work is shouldered by the programme leaders, who are responsible for the ongoing management of our programmes. But they're not alone, and they need to be supported by each individual member of faculty who delivers courses and feeds into the overall health of the programme. So it's really important that ownership and allowing colleagues to tailor the initiatives to their experience, because they know their students best. This one is really important, about recognising and addressing barriers. In terms of academic colleagues, we are all very busy. I've been a lecturer for many years. I've led programs for 15 years, so I know what it's like to be a very busy academic, juggling many responsibilities, addressing different priorities: teaching, research, student recruitment, student retention, admin. And then on top of all that, we're saying to colleagues that you need to build these industry networks, and that moreover, you need to feed that experience into the curriculum. It's a big ask. And through all my work, I always try and see it from my colleagues' point of view, and thinking how we can support them, create frameworks, create tools that will make it efficient for them and make it easier. Another thing to mention is that in terms of when we're all busy, we tend to focus on the more immediate priorities. As I say, first-time pass rates for courses and progression rates, they are quite immediate. Whereas some of the work that I champion to do with industry engagement, the impact of that can be a lot slower, and you don't necessarily see the benefits for a few years. So that's a real issue with some of this work, is what can we do to focus the mind of colleagues on the shorter term, on activities that we can measure, that in time will lead to positive outcomes for our graduates. Obviously, training is important for colleagues. It needs to be tailored, and it needs to be interactive. I've been on obviously different kinds of training sessions myself, and I've led sessions, and the ones that work are the ones where colleagues are given some ownership and allowed to share their experiences around a certain framework. But I think anyone looking to change the culture within a university obviously needs to be aware that individuals have their own career ambitions, and they're coming from other institutions. A lot of my colleagues have come from institutions from around the world where they may have worked under different cultures. And obviously, if we're trying to encourage certain working practices, we need to bear in mind that colleagues are also thinking about their own individual career trajectories. And so with that in mind, it's very important that work in this area is recognised, it's rewarded, and that there's kudos for industry engagement. And I would say that we have made great strides in this regard. And when we're having our performance reviews, it's much more it's much more given much more focus than previously. But there are things that we can do to help with that process, to help line managers and to help the direct reports as well. So in terms of the kind of initiatives that we develop and the activities that we're asking academic colleagues to get involved with, we need to think of it from their point of view. Are these activities as well as being good for students and generally a good thing, are they going to help with applications for internal promotion? And whilst there may be expectations around building industry networks, embedding real life case studies, arranging guest lectures and workshops, all this work, this extra effort and the admin around all these good practices, academic colleagues need to feel that their endeavours are being valued and that it's being recognised. There are some colleagues that will do this anyway. Myself, I've been at the forefront of employability within my sort of local area in the university for many years before it became sort of front and central. But if we're going to really change the culture, it needs to be, this kind of approach needs to get buy-in from the wider teams across the university. As I mentioned, there is an inherent lag in graduate outcomes data. And so I've been working on initiatives to measure things in the shorter term that will eventually lead to increased performance in terms of graduate outcomes. So with that in mind, I went through a data gathering exercise. This was about 18 months ago now. And this was the first time that it had been done in the university. And it was within the College of Computing as it was then. And it was a very straightforward in terms of a shared spreadsheet. And I asked colleagues to give feedback on across all of our courses and all of our programs, 120 courses, in terms of a range of activities. So I was asking that for each course, how many assessments incorporate an industry-derived case study or a live brief from an industry partner? How many guest lectures or workshops delivered by industry, by friends in industry? Industry mentors. So in my previous session, I talked about a forum-based approach where students can talk directly to groups of industry mentors through a Teams forum. The number of embedded careers sessions, that's where our specialist colleagues from our careers team come into the class and talk to the students as part of a course about their career ambitions. And obviously that changes as they go through the different levels of the programme. The number of industry mentor projects. So in the final year, our students do a final year project, and we are trying to increase the number which are explored and developed in partnership with a company. And then in terms of formative feedback and summative feedback, we do have some opportunities within our programs for students to get feedback from industry mentors as part of their development of their assessments before they formally submit. And then elsewhere, particularly with final year students, there is an opportunity for industry to give feedback on final year projects as well. Embedded certification, so I'm thinking in terms of our Cisco courses and other programs as well. How many opportunities are there within our programs for students to gain certification with external organisations that they can add to their LinkedIn profiles? That's very important nowadays. And I also asked questions around industrial advisory boards. We have the requirement to have official industrial advisory boards at a department level now, but we also try and encourage informal ongoing interaction at a program level as well. So part of my audit was asking about that. How many people are involved? How often do you meet? That kind of thing. So whilst that was seen to be a useful activity, and it did raise some interesting bits of feedback, there was some fantastic good practice going on that was not necessarily being widely recognised, so that was really good. But there was also some inconsistencies in terms of from one programme to the next, the extent to which students have opportunities to interact with individuals from industry. So I was thinking about next steps in terms of how to develop that further. And I was lucky enough to go to a conference earlier this year in Amsterdam, and I was presenting some of my own work. And I went to another session where academics from Jönköping University in Sweden, they were talking about working in a similar area that parallels so strongly to what I was doing at BCU. And they were talking about enhancing employer engagement at a curriculum level and capturing faculty activities with external partners. And they did it through an app. And the benefits that they were talking about, primarily they'd witnessed ineffective CRM systems where they, one of the key problems there is academic colleagues maybe being reluctant to share details and contact details of individuals within particular companies for whatever reason. And there's also obviously GDPR issues around that data as well. So the way that they got around it, which I thought was really interesting, was to create an app, which is obviously quite designed to be quite efficient and quick to use, user-friendly, certainly more user-friendly than my spreadsheet. And to ask academics only for the names of companies, not for the names of individuals. So that gets around the issues around GDPR and reluctance from faculty to share particular contacts. And they found they got much better buy-in with that approach. So I'll put the link to that university there if you're interested. But out of that, when I came back, I worked on my own app with one of our placement students who was working with us for the year. This isn't quite finished yet, but it's almost. So this is it. It's a very basic app. It's done using Power BI. And the idea is that it's very quick for academic colleagues to complete. So if you imagine looking at this, this is one course, and the person running the course is being asked, has the assessment been developed in collaboration with an industry partner, perhaps with a live brief, perhaps with a case study, yes or no? And are there any guest lectures or workshops from industry partners? Opportunities for formative feedback, summative feedback? Is there a mentor forum, career sessions, and then certification? So this is looking back retrospectively at the previous academic year. And you can also have drop-down boxes to add the names of companies as well. At the bottom of the screen there, you'll see that there's data capture around the number of industry mentor projects and whether they are a tutor for a student that is currently on placement. So when our students go and work in industry, they are visited by an academic. And I can come back to that later, actually. And then KTPs, that's knowledge transfer partnerships. That's, again, I discussed that in a previous session, but that is a government-backed scheme where universities and companies collaborate in terms of the employment of a graduate. So this is a capture reflecting the previous academic year, but there's also a requirement to add a very brief action plan. So the benefit of this is that you can quickly capture a list of courses. So you can imagine this is course by course across the whole department. And then obviously you can sort by how many guest lectures, formative feedback, etc., and the module plans. It's a quick way of getting visibility on what is happening across the department. And then finally for this is a different view. This is we call it a course view, but you'd know it as a program view. So across the whole program, this is a snapshot, hopefully indicating progress over a 3-year period. So at a glance, we can see what's happening in terms of the growth in number of guest lectures, etc., the growth in numbers of opportunities for formative feedback from industry partners. This is meant to be a catalyst for development. It's not meant to be a draconian kind of approach. There's always a conversation to be had around all of these things. For instance, in terms of guest lectures, it's not necessarily that more is good. It could be that there's a couple of really fantastic guest lectures that give fantastic opportunities for our students, and that's fine. It's just there as a vehicle to support conversation. particularly at a program level, at an individual level, but also when a member of staff has their performance review. This can help in terms of the conversations that a line manager can have with a colleague. Again, it's meant to be supportive. It's our job as a university, as university management, to support colleagues on this journey and to give them the training and support that they need. So what does this all mean? Well, some academic colleagues, maybe they're new joining the organisation, or maybe they've been with us for a while, they may lack industry networks. And I've noticed this tends to be the case, particularly with colleagues who went through academia and then went through a degree, an undergraduate degree, perhaps a master's, a PhD, and do not necessarily have experience of industry. So yes, they may lack those industry networks. So what can we do to support them? Obviously, one of the reasons for championing this approach is to ensure that our students are learning the right skills in such a fast-changing environment driven by technology. How can we ensure that our students are learning the right skills? So one of the ways that we do that is through our Innovation Fest, which is an annual event where we invite our industry partners to come on site and to meet our students and meet academic colleagues. As part of that, we ask them to complete a very short Microsoft form type questionnaire where we ask them, just using radio buttons, to let us know what activities they would be happy to share with us, such as guest lectures, such as helping with case studies. This is such useful data, because then when we have colleagues that lack those industry networks, we can flip it and we can share with them individuals that are prepared to help them and develop those networks and help them on that journey. So in other areas that we can help, there's obviously mentorship. And mentorship for me is such a fantastic way of changing the culture within academic teams, but it's something that needs to be recognised. I think it needs to be captured in performance reviewed and the kudos given for that really vital work. I think more needs to be done in terms of capturing and cascading best practice. As I say, that audit that I did surfaced things that really weren't apparent to the wider teams. We need colleagues to feel comfortable that they can share barriers to why they're not necessarily able to fully engage with this work, and the onus is on us to work with them, to support them in terms of toolkits, platforms, frameworks, etc. Something that we do as part of our performance reviews is that we obviously have KPIs for individuals depending on their role, but we also have, as a starting point, what we call library goals, which is like a starting point for a conversation that a colleague might use and tailor to shape their work for the forthcoming year. And we've gone to some effort to make sure that graduate employability and industry engagement are more clearly weaved into that. But we need to obviously listen to any feedback from staff, and we need to make sure that we're considering the resource implications of some of this work. When we recruit new staff, right from the advertising stage through the various stages of the interview process, etc., we're very open about the fact that we are looking for new colleagues to join us who buy into this culture, who want to work in a culture where it's a 3D academic, where they're expected to get involved in teaching, research, and industry engagement. Looking at it more from a student point of view, as I say, the demographics of our students, a lot of them are coming from the local area. They may have had quite limited experience of the workplace. A lot of our students work part-time, but typically doing jobs that are not necessarily directly aligned to their programs. So another area is that our students are given the option when they start our programs to either sign up for a 3-year or a 4-year version. The 4-year version of the programs includes a year in industry. And our data shows that some students from particular backgrounds may sign up for the 4-year program, but for whatever reason, maybe they feel there's some barriers that they can't necessarily overcome, and they switch to the 3-year program whilst they're with us. Now that indicates something. That indicates that there's more that we can do, and that there's issues there that we need to address in order to support them to work in industry for a year. One of the ways we've tried to do that is by having a placements fair, where students that are currently on placement come back to the university, and we ask them to create posters that illustrate the work that they're doing and the benefits of doing a placement. But it's peer-to-peer, and they will talk to other students and hopefully build that confidence and build those networks as well. My colleagues in the engineering department are at the forefront of in terms of work integrated learning. So they're being quite radical in their approach. We're completely flipping it on its head. We're calling it reimagining engineering. Everything is based on projects. So we're moving away from standalone courses that might be teaching the fundamentals of engineering to a much more project-based approach, where those fundamentals are embedded in project-based work. It's going to be delivered by a block-based approach, which obviously has implications for timetables, but really fundamentally, through this approach in engineering, they're going to be working in close partnership with industry partners. Industry partners will help to shape every assessment, provide those case studies, talk to the students, and give some feedback as well. I mentioned that about work elsewhere. I mentioned that university in Sweden. So my interest in this area goes a long way back, and I've explored networks across the globe who are at the forefront of some of this work, and I've put a few links there that you might find interesting. There's conferences there that I've mentioned. There's also the University of Waterloo in Canada doing some fantastic work in terms of work integrated learning. So if you're interested in this, I recommend exploring some of those. So in terms of the overarching view on this is coming to the end of my presentation now. So university can be a transformative experience, and I've seen countless examples where closer interaction with industry partners has directly influenced a student's career choice. It's led to site visits, work experience, paid work, and graduate opportunities. Companies large, small, national, global are happy to work with us year in, year out and inspire our students and to support their businesses with efficient skills pipelines. In my experience, there's untapped goodwill. I mentioned previously in one of my earlier presentations, I've never had a company say to me, Roy, I'm too busy to get involved. There really is a lot of goodwill. But moreover, I've seen faculty, I've seen academic colleagues embrace these opportunities for engagement with industry, and it's enhanced their teaching, contributed to research, and added new and interesting aspects to their work. So we're very much on a journey at BCU. I'm not implying that we have all the answers. Our strategies continue to evolve in light of interactions with other institutions, as I said, around the world. And obviously what I found is that we are all dealing with very similar issues across the globe. So just coming to the end now, if you're interested in collaboration or talking to me further about any of this, maybe talking around strategy development or research, you're welcome to contact me either by email or LinkedIn. And there's a few more resources there as well.